Well, good morning to you on this Friday. Hey, let me share a couple of thoughts with you about resting on His promises. I was thinking this morning, I preach twice on Sundays, once on Saturday night. So a typical service at the church where I pastor here runs for about 2 hours with half of that time given to preaching. That means I preach 2 1-hour messages on Sunday and one 45-minute one on Saturday. I usually have short meetings with the church leaders before the service starts at 8:30. In between services, between that and the second service, I love that. And I usually get up around 6. Cindy and I have coffee together, and sometimes our kids are up and we have coffee with them. But needless to say, by Sunday afternoon, I am tired. That's when I head straight for my easy chair. I don't know, you probably like that as well, but before I know it, a lot of times I'm asleep. No bed needed, no blanket required, no pillow necessary. If football is on, like it is right now on Sunday afternoons, I usually catnap through the first couple quarters and maybe catch the last of the fourth quarter. But every week I think this is going to be the week that I am man enough to just rest for a little while, and I won't fall asleep, and I'll get to watch the game in its entirety. But it's yet to happen. Jesus wasn't reclining in an easy chair in Mark chapter 4. He didn't nod off in front of a football game, and his stomach full from a hearty breakfast or lunch. It was nighttime. And if it's night, you know what that means? It's dark. It was windy. The boat was rocking fiercely in the middle of a savage storm. That storm threatened to sink the boat. How do you fall asleep during such a storm? Granted, Jesus was surely exhausted after a long day of teaching and preaching and ministering to people, but he did more than just nod off. When Jesus went to sleep on the boat, he did so on purpose. This is interesting. Think about this. How do I know this? Because the scripture tells us in verse 38, it says he was sleeping on the cushion. Check it out. Jesus had grabbed a pillow and he had moved to the stern or the back of the boat, where he could then stretch out his arms and legs and get comfortable on a cushion or a pillow. When you're stretched out asleep on a pillow, you meant to go to sleep. If you've ever got a pillow tucked up under your head, that is a sure sign that you are on a mission, and that mission is snoring. So how could Jesus sleep when such a storm had arisen? I mean, even his disciples feared for their own lives. Perhaps he wanted to test whether they would trust him or trust his word or not. He wanted to see perhaps if they would trust what he said more than they trusted and looked at their circumstances around them. And I suppose that he probably does you and I the same way. Jesus had already told them what they were going to do. He had said, let's cross over to the other side of the sea. Jesus could sleep in the midst of the worst storm because of just that one sentence. He didn't say, let's go for a boat ride. let's go to the middle of the sea and then capsize the boat, sink it, and drown. He didn't say, we're going to go part of the way and turn back. But rather, Jesus said, let's cross over to the other side of the sea. No storm can ever take God by surprise or alter his plan for your life. Jesus' disciples did what we often do when we go to church. They did what we often do when we listen to a sermon, or we listen or participate in a Bible study, much like this devotion that we're doing this morning. We often hear the message without applying the meaning. Had the disciples heard the intended implication of what Jesus had said, perhaps they would have grabbed their own pillows, laid their head down, and went to sleep. But instead, they heard the words but missed the promise. When you find yourself in a problem, don't forget the promise. Remember, Jesus said he's right there with you. Grab a pillow and trust him to take you to the other side. Never mind the waves, he walks on them. You be encouraged and have a super day. See you Monday.